So here's our start position. Got the hip draped, got the upper body draped, got the belly covered though, because we don't want it to get cold through the belly. Really?
Flat hand, effleurage, broadening, and compressions to ES and QL.
For the moment, I will go higher again, because I do want to get lower down into that back. Remember though, you've got to work out, do you want to be able to focus more into the hip or more into the lower back if you're having to set your table up without an electric table. Thank you. So broadening, opening up through there, and doing some effleurage even up through the top of the hip to warm this whole area up. Yeah, next one.
Thumb frictions along ES and from spine, cross ES and QL.
Okay, so I can do some thumb frictions down the back here. Remember, we're not working over the sacrum. Watch your top hand as well. If they are really heavily pregnant, you don't want to be pushing down into the side of that belly too much. That's more for you really skinny girls, because that belly's going to start a fair way back on their body. So some nice double thumb frictions. You see my table's a lot higher than I normally have it, but I still have to get low here. Because I'm not going to do this on the other side, I'm going to sneak in and do just a little bit of finger frictions into that lower side. That all comfortable? Pressure all right for you? Okay, we don't want to go more than a 5 or a 6 with you being pregnant. I don't want to get you to 7, 8s and 9s. About a 2 or a 3. Alright, so that's fine with 2 or 3. I can also work coming across the back, heading up now, and just move some of that tissue away so I get a bit more purchase. And I can work across the top of the hip and work my way back up. And this is the same as we work with doing a QL release when they're laying face down. So this is just a side laying QL release in a sense. My next one, my pressure points. Yeah. So as you would do with your QL release, working across ES, getting to the line of tension, you're in about there. I'm just watching the eye close. And now I'm just pushing down. If you needed to get more pressure, you could stand up higher and push down, but I'm going to be perfectly fine getting enough pressure. And now I'm pushing down towards the bed. It may not look like I am, but I'm pushing down towards the bed, not directly towards the spine. And again, if you don't think I'm moving much tissue, if I do this, you see that I was never going to get in there. I'd be working through here, and there's just too much tissue all compressed together because they're on their side. So we lengthen that out. You're still getting that little bit of stretch there. Yep, so there's still a bit of stretch going on just from pushing that hip down. Working all through QL, and as with most people, it's that third lumbar vertebra where you normally get that nasty bit of a knot, and we can just sit on that for a little bit longer. But we don't have any contraindications to any acupressure or anything around this area, so release off that QL. All right.
Finger palm, forearm, effleurage, kneading, and frictions to glutes.
Okay.
5 minutes plus.
Yeah, so we want to work here. There, so don't just come through here and go, okay, I'm done. 5 minutes plus. So I can use the fingers, work. You just want to follow the lower border of the iliac crest and as far down under that towel as you can. Don't freak out that you're not going to get right to the greater trochanter, because when I drape up, this time I'm going to make sure I bring those undies nice and high, and I can really get around the top of the greater trochanter from the other side. So as long as I can get about half of that distance between the iliac crest and the greater trochanter, so I can use my finger frictions. I'm actually still going to give myself a little bit more space here. Use palms through there. I can turn in and drag a little bit of knuckles back down as well. And this is the point, I've set this bed up just a little bit too high for doing this, so when I do drape the leg, I'm going to drop it a touch more. How's all that feeling? Really good, nice and tight. And I'm just going to feel around through here and see if I can find any real nasty pressure, nasty tight areas for some pressure. And I do, I've got some in there. So I'm just going to drag back down with my hands, and then try and get into that with a little bit of friction work. Again, normally with our friction work, we're happy to get up to 6s, 7s. With some people, if they can take it, 8s. We only want to be sitting around that 5 or 6. How you going there? Anywhere near that 5 or 6 yet? Getting there? About a 5. All right, so that's about my pressure. And you can see it's not a lot of pressure. So that's just doing some circular compressions with the thumbs. Oh, there we go. That's a nice tight spot. Sort of facial expression. So we're just going to stop and sit there for a second. And you guys know how to do that style release. On each other, you're going to be able to find even more than you'll find during pregnancy, because you won't have any of the extra fluid sitting around the hips that you just always find during pregnancy. Unless they're one of the really skinny ladies. Alright, how's that feeling through there now? A little bit nicer. I would normally spend longer, but I'm not going to spend all that time sitting and doing static work. That's the hip done?
Yes.
Yes. Alright, so draping side of the leg.
Did you just do the trigger tender points?
Yes. Yep. So that was trigger pointing or tender points along the side of the hip.
Yep. Re-drape point, and then it's got like a S.
Sorry?
What size difference between you and your client?
Ah, okay. We're doing
psoas
our
stretch.
Okay, our psoas stretch from here. So I'll get you guys to all come around this way because I don't want anyone sitting down there for draping reasons here. We should be okay. I am going to drop the bed just a touch here so that I'm not working above my own height here. I'm going to be holding that leg in my arm. So if you're really small and your client has nice big heavy looking legs, you might not want to do this in this position. You can just go with that Thomas stretch that we did earlier, which will be on after this in the video. So I'm going to draw that leg back. I'm actually going to come under here. I'm just going to grab underneath the front of your knees. Just lift up a touch. All right, coming this way. So you can see that I've got the leg between my arm and my chest here. I'm going to keep this towel down. My boss is going to run away on me. I'm going to draw back. I'm going to hold the back of the hip. So I'm going to shift into here. You all right there?
Yeah.
Getting a little bit of stretch on the front there,
Yeah.
the front of the hip. We don't want to go too far. Is that a good stretch now?
Yeah.
Because you're nice and tight, aren't you? All right. So what I'm doing is, I'll stop that stretch for a second. I'm stabilising the back of the glute, holding under the leg, and just drawing back to just try and get some length on, a little bit on rec fem, but more so on psoas. Okay, when you're using this on a person that doesn't have quite short psoas, they probably won't feel anything at all. That's fine. You can bring the leg a fair bit further back. I'm just going to be quite cautious of putting too much length on a pregnant abdomen there. Think that one worked well for you?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So successful stretch. Good. Now we're going to drape for side of leg. You're going to get that quite nicely there. So get halfway along the side of the towel. I'm going to draw back up into the undies. I am going to get you guys to shift in a second.
Do you want us to swap views?
Tuck nice and high here, and then I'm going to get under that leg again. Lovely. There we go. So plenty of side of that hip exposed. Come around the other side, guys. So, I've got the side of the hip here to work on now. I would normally work from the front for a lot of this, but I'm going to let you guys see this a little bit better, so I will work from behind. You can work wherever's most comfortable to you. So I'm just going to get the oil on from this side a little bit. Actually, I'm not going to be doing much lower leg, so I'm just going to oil up the top of that hip. Now what's going to get really tight through the hips in pregnancy, TFL, and your external rotators. So even the internal and external rotators often get really tight. So we'll do a little bit, we could do some of that long techniques that we did before to warm up the side of the thigh. I'm just going to do some effleurage and a little bit of kneading from here just to get it all nice and warm. Kneading to the top of the hip. That's basically where we're at anyway, is it not?
Kneading to glutes.
Kneading to glutes, so there we go. Kneading the glute. So like your traditional calf and thigh kneading. No real change there. Make sure that towel stays nice and tight, and then I'm going to start working around the greater trochanter. All the way from, we've got the attachment of the glute, all the way down here. You can actually feel it really easy in side laying. As I run down the back of the IT band, I can feel the attachment of glute max here. So I can run all the way from down there, around greater trochanter, and forward into TFL. And I'm going to let you guys guide me here. Where's she tight?
She was tight.
She was tight. Wait for it, there'll be more.
There it is.
There it is there, okay. External hip rotators, probably piriformis and a bit of the go-go's there. Coming around, and TFL as well.
Yep.
Okay, so all of it, awesome. So I start working around the front. I could stand in front and do some stripping working back towards me. I'm going to work across the top of the hip, working forward into TFL. And if I do find anything nasty, I can just do, like you can do in the glutes and the lower back, you can just do a little hook there. So I'm just pressing down with the fingers and hooking into that nasty tension. Again, I'd probably spend a couple of minutes stripping this area out and getting it feeling really nice. Remember, 5s and 6s. Don't let me go too high.
That's all right.
Come through the top of the hip. We can use those thumbs through there or use the fingers. I generally work a fair bit more one-handed here than I normally would because I want to stabilise that hip. I don't want her rolling forward, because if she rolls forward, what's she rolling onto? Yeah, her baby. I don't want that. So I can bring that forearm in here as well. How's that feel?
It's not too bad.
Good. Forearm's only as bad as you make it, how much you're leaning on the person. And there's a fair bit of tension around those attachments of glute med and glute min. Lovely. I love facial expressions. They tell you everything. And it's just there, so again I could stop, spend 30 seconds or a minute just sitting in there, letting the side of the hip release. A couple of areas to really pay attention to is, yes, above greater trochanter, where you're going to get those attachments for glute min and glute med. You're mainly going to feel glute min. TFL in the front, so if you can find where ACES is, and that's oftentimes not a bad spot. On non-pregnant people, I'll actually hook onto that and hold it. Here I don't want any lower abdominal pressure. So we can just hold the front of the hip, but between ACES and greater trochanter, you've got TFL sitting in here. And then as we come around, think of where the middle of the sacrum is there. We've got, if you find the highest point of the sacrum and greater trochanter, so we've actually got a reasonable distance here. That line is going to be very similar to where piriformis is going to sit. So if you get higher up in the glute there and you start getting some tension and you can cross fibre it. This is a new cross fibre technique. I really only use it on the glutes. So it's 2 thumbs and I'm working side to side. You can use it working up the thigh, side of the thigh as well. But I can find piriformis, and piriformis is, yeah. If I actually come back and we're going to find that, it's actually an acupressure point, gallbladder 30. It's right in the divot of your glute. It's basically the piriformis, nice big knotty area. And you can sit in that and do all your release work around there. But if you slide around further, so you're pretty much standing right behind their hip, and there's nastier stuff in there, isn't it? That's where we're starting to find those go-go's, gemellus and obturator. And then lower down, if you start to drop off greater trochanter, and you'll feel it lower down because you're heading towards more ischial tuberosity now, and you've got quadriceps femoris down there. And again, all through here, I like doing that, just that sideways work. It's not very hard on me. It's an inward pressure and then just pushing either way. Like you're going to start doing a friction, but you get a little bit of a movement. So you start to slide and then come back and slide the opposite direction. I'm just going to work through there and find that nasty area. Make sure you don't come too far off greater trochanter, because you'll start to lose these muscles. They start to dive too deep in through the hip. You getting that okay there? Beautiful. All right, so really work through there and find those nasty areas, then come back in a little bit deeper on this stripping around here now. How you going?
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. Not getting past that 6 on you, am I? A little bit tender in a few spots though. Hopefully she gets up and is really mobile at the end of this.
Hopefully.
And I'm just going to work back from greater trochanter now and head back around. If your thumb's not strong enough to do that, use your fingers, or even you can come around, especially if you get some of these rock hard glutes, and especially when it's not pregnancy massage and you come through with the forearm and elbow there. But you can see I'm not putting a hell of a lot of pressure there. That's probably not even as painful as my thumb, is it? About that.
Yeah.
All right, and really easy on me. All right. It's our frictions around the greater trochanter.
Also around the iliac crest.
Yeah, so I've come around the iliac crest, greater trochanter. I've worked all through that area now. It's actually nice and warm.
Okay.
Very warm.
Thumb frictions to feel for tension in external rotators.
Yep. So that was when I was working through the back there.
Long
Beautiful.
strokes the side of leg. ITB,
Okay.
use compressions, broadening, kneading, etc.
So this is where I'm going to be drawing up. I can use the knuckles there or the palms. I'm really going to try and get some good compression through the side of the leg to get that ITB. Do a few FLRS warm-ups there because this feels like it's going to be quite tight through the side of the leg. So working up. The compression and broadening is working up like this. How's that feel?
Yep.
So that bit of fascial stretching there. And again, any of those techniques from the last routine, you can bring in the fingers, the knuckles, any thumbs, if there was any really nasty spots there. I'm just going to feel with the fingers up through there. Normally you find on an IT band, about where a person standing is going to rest their finger on the side of their leg, which is about here. It's going to be really nasty. Or it's going to be down in here. They're your two key areas where it normally gets nasty. So I'm going to use actually a little bit of that alternating thumb frictions and just warm that area up because that's a bit nastier than what was on the other side. What was the next one, Millie?
And redrape climb.
Okay. Then I've got my other stretch.
And then you've got the stretches.
Okay. So I've got one more stretch I do from here, and that's pretty much us done. So you can see that we're really only focusing on QL and on the glutes. You probably take about another 5 or 10 minutes on what I've done here, and you have heaps of work done through that side. How are you feeling there on the side? Is it still feeling a bit tight?
Feels a lot better than it did.
Beautiful. And last thing I want to do is try and get every little ounce of tension out the side of your hip, and she gets up and feels horrible for it because I've overworked her. Don't want to overwork anyone that's pregnant. I'm just going to take the oil off and then I'll show you. We did the hip rotator stretch while our client was laying on their back in the other video, which will be after this video. This is the option for doing it in a side laying position, and I actually like this one heaps more. It's easy to do as long as I don't have a client that's going to roll as I try and do this stretch. I'm going to re-drape here, take that out and that out. I'm very cautious with my draping with you guys there. I'm going to bring this one down to drape the top half more. Just draw that down a little bit more there. Again, Jim, if I can get you around here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go under the towel, you know, breaking those golden rules, but I'm going to go under the towel. I'm going to lift that leg up similar to what I did last time. I'm going to hook right underneath the thigh. So I'm going to hook under the thigh here. Come here, hook under the thigh. I've got you there. That leg's just off the edge of the table. Get the bolster out of the way. And now what I'm propping here, holding, using my arm strength. And I'm going to do just a little bit of a draw here, because you're going to want to roll onto your belly a little bit. She's not too stable through the hip. And I'm going to do an an external rotation there. Bit of stretch there. Does that feel all right now? That's feeling all right. That leg's going a long way. But then we can P an effort from this position as well, get her to resist against me. Then I can turn the other way and draw that leg up. And be careful of my bolster, we've got people around here. And then I can turn that leg up and get her to resist pushing down. Okay. And I can do my 3 there if she was really, really tight, which is actually not too bad. Those movements work quite well. Bring that leg back up there, relax back down. And that's about the time that I'd roll her over and do the other side.